So guys, today I'm going to be teaching my girlfriend Ashley how to bushcraft. Anyways guys, we're going to be, in this first part, we're going to be teaching her how to start fires with a ferro rod using the natural materials around us. So before we get started, as always, don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more of this awesomeness. So guys, I'm going to let her explain to you why she's really interested in bushcrafting. So take it away.
So I grew up in a very small community in Anderson down the Parks Highway. Some of you may or may not know where that's at. There's a lot of woods out there, and I used to go hunting with my dad all the time, and I used to wander around in the woods as a little kid, just, you know, whittling sticks and stuff. And, you know, I've always had this love of like being out in nature, and I've always had this adventurous spirit, but I always thought, well, what happens if I'm in a situation where I like get lost? How am I supposed to survive this? Because I may not know how to. And then I met Matthew, and I'm like, you know what? Teach me your ways, because I need to know. I think it's pretty important.
Yeah.
But I've always had a spirit of adventure, so I've always been kind of excited to learn outdoorsy stuff. I'm always eager to learn, so it's going to be
So guys, like I said, we're going to be doing the basics of fire crafting. And with fire crafting, the absolute most basic when using a ferro rod is you have to start with easy combustibles. Now, of course, most people are thinking birch bark, but there's actually multiple different levels of birch bark. And I'm going to show you the second level of birch bark here in a moment. But when using a ferro rod, you want to begin to find really lightweight and very thin. In fact, this type of birch bark right here.
the stuff I was peeling off earlier.
So this type of birch bark here that's very thin actually catches the spark of a ferro rod really well. And so essentially what you want to do is grab about a handful of this stuff, because this stuff is known as pretty much a flash flame. So what's going to happen is you're going to hit it with your ferro rod and it's going to go up in instant flame. However, it's not going to last because it's a flash flame. So essentially you want to just work and continue to get about a handful of this stuff neatly compacted. And that is going to be the ground basis of how you're actually going to light off your fire with a ferro rod. So guys, this is the second type of birch bark. You'll notice it's a lot larger and a lot thicker. Now, if you have to, you can use this type of birch bark here just alone with a ferro rod, but I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. But if you can, with all preference, try and start with the thinner level of birch bark, and then you're going to want to go over to this thicker level. So as far as quantity goes, you want to have about this much. This is actually probably a little bit overkill.
It's okay. We want a nice hot fire.
So you don't need a whole lot, but this is about good. Probably just one of these strands, even about this much right here, is pretty good. Okay. You don't need a whole lot of this, though as a beginner, I would probably recommend having a little bit more, because you may not be able, you may mess up, or you may not quite get all your twigs on it in time. So the next part we're going to go over is getting the twigs and smaller stuff. So now on to gathering wood. Of course, it makes a lot of sense not to grab stuff on the ground. For those who don't know, obviously stuff on the ground is really prone to moisture, especially around here. Like right behind this camera, there's actually a small pond. So that really shows that in this area, pretty much everything on the ground is going to be wet or have some level of moisture. So when you're in, especially an environment like this, but really any environment, stay away from stuff on the ground, because that is going to be the worst possible stuff. Grab it if you have to, but generally what you're looking for is stuff like this. You can see that this is multiple dead standing pieces of willow, and the sticks, as Ashley is showing here, are very dry and they crack very easily. You do not want any spring in this stuff. As you can see, there's no spring in any of this wood. So it's all very dry, it's all very dead, and that's exactly what you want. So that's probably as large as you should.
Pretty good.
Yeah, because we're just gonna do basics. Like we're not gonna do like a bonfire here.
Aww,
so
fine. If you insist.
Exactly. But just sticking to small twigs and even going up to about thumb thickness for kindling. People supposed to be. So guys, now we're going to be doing batoning. Batoning is the best way to take large and for the most part unusable pieces of wood and make them extremely more useful for what we need to do. This is also going to tie into feather sticking, and I'm going to show how to do feather sticking after we do batoning. Now batoning is pretty basic. As you can see, Ashley here has her knife most of it encompassing this entire thing, and then, or this entire piece of wood, and then she has a strikeable amount here. So to start off, you're just going to strike it.
We'll also explain that there's a base here to keep it it steady. They might want to know that. Yeah, they're supposed to learn. If you're going to teach them, you have to teach them all the way. Now explain the base.
Also a base here, and you can sometimes use a base. You don't always have to use a base. We're using a base here because the ground is soft, and as you hit the ground, this is going to sink in instead of add natural resistance. So you also should do this on snow. So without any further ado, Ashley's going to pretty much do this. Now keep in mind, it is also very important to have enough of your blade sticking out on the other side.
Oops, came off the base. Whoa, hi there. It keeps moving.
Yeah, this is also a pretty tough piece of wood.
That's okay, I'm a tough piece of woman.
So as you guys can see there's quite a few knots in this piece of wood, and that's what made it so that's tricky. The basics to batoning. And keep in mind, now we're actually going to try a different strategy. So this is a different strategy, and don't do anything yet. So actually you're going to do like this. This is a different strategy, and this is what you do when your knife is not actually large enough. I mean, in this case, the knife is large enough to completely span this piece of wood, but this is what you do when your knife is not actually large enough to span the entire piece of wood. So here you have just enough of the edge, you just want just enough the tip sticking out so that it does branch off, and then you're going to strike here. But that isn't always necessary. Sometimes you can have your tip about a half inch back. I'm going to flip it over because this
is the broader end and it'll stand up better.
Okay, so and keep in mind, you do not have to have the tip going or showing through, but it is better. Now keep in mind, this is also a harder technique, but
it slightly is.
But you're going to be batoning with the back side of the edge. This is also what you do if you're like me and you have a Tahoma field knife, and where the tip of the edge or the tip of the blade is actually sharpened, you can't baton on that. So that's how you would do it with a double-edged knife, or if your knife isn't large enough to span the entire piece of wood. So that is the basics to batoning. Now let's move over to feather sticking. Okay, help us sit down first. So guys, now we're going to do feather sticking. Feather sticking is probably the most complicated piece, and it's not going to require this, but rather these. So you can use multiple different knives. We're probably going to be using the Tops Fieldcraft for this. And essentially what you want to do, I'll actually show you this.
Your little neck knife?
Yeah, so I'm going to do it with the Mora Eldris to show her, but she's also going to do something similar. So basically what you want to do is kind of look around at your pieces of batoned wood and kind of find one. It does not have to be, nothing has to be perfect here, but you want to find something that's pretty perfect. And essentially, you just want to begin to clear off a flat spot. And that's the big, most important thing. So there are a few different ways you can feather stick. And the first way is the way that Morris Gohansky talks about it in Bushcraft, the book. And I prefer his method because his method is a little bit better for having long, don't drive your knife into the dirt, but anyways, his technique produces larger curls and they burn better. So that's probably it.
All right. It doesn't have to be perfect.
So now we're going to show you feather sticking. And this is, of course, the first style. So the first style is very basic. If you want to let me show you how to do it.
Yeah, because I'm screwing up,
Exactly.
So go ahead.
So the first method is quite basic in the fact that pretty much what you're going to do is you're going to hold your hand very firm. It's going to be very firm, and it's not going to want to shake, and you're not going to want to like rotate it at all. And pretty much you're going to set it at a flat angle, and you're kind of just going to go along the wood on one flat plane. So there's another style where you rotate the wood like this style, but for now we're just going to focus on just creating one flat plane. This knife's really short and it's a little bit difficult to do it with this knife, but it can be done. So yeah, you just have and this is something that takes experience, but you have just a little bit of rotation in your edge. So like I said, eventually what you'll have to do is firm up your wrist so hard that it just becomes one solid moving object. And that's going to be the most important.
Building the muscle up.
Yeah.
I'm trying to lock it.
Yeah. And like I say, it also takes experience. Like feather sticking at the, like what I did is it takes.
Like with anything,
experience.
it takes muscle memory too.
Yeah.
Like even with horseback riding. So you got to develop those muscles and the skills.
So pretty good. I mean, pretty okay. I mean, as far as it goes, like that's okay. That probably wouldn't work for like a ferro rod, but for a first time, it would be better than nothing. And keep in mind, you want to do feather stickings. I don't actually think I ever clarified that you want to do feather sticking for 2 reasons, and that is one, that if you get fine enough shavings, you can actually ignite them with a ferro rod. And then secondly, they also go up in flames a lot faster. So if you're working with a piece of wood that's wet or something that you need, or if your fire's kind of weak, you can set this in here and it helps because of all this surface area, it goes up. Another thing I should note with batoning, one big reason why you do want a baton is if, say, and up here in Alaska, we don't have to worry about this that much, but if you're in a place where it just got like rained and everything around you is soaked, well, oftentimes the core of the wood will still be dry. And so you want a baton to get to the core of that wood. And so that's another really important reason to baton. Guys, we've now got the fire lay, and as you could see, another thing that we did for batoning was that we batoned some logs to have a nice fire lay here. Now another thing we did, of course, because this land is very dry grass and we don't want to start like a forest fire, we peeled back the moss and we peeled back the dead grass. I would encourage, if you are going to have a larger fire, we're going to do a very small, very basic fire here, but if you are going to have a larger fire, I would recommend having at least 3 feet and around a circle of your area of just peeled back moss and peeled back anything that could potentially be flammable. In fact, I think we're still going to clean it. Guys, we've now cleared it out just a little bit more. I want to set a better standard for you guys and for the person I'm teaching. So yeah, you want to have around 2 feet on a kind of rough circle. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle of just cleared out area. Another thing we should know is behind this camera, there's actually a small pond, so I could get water if I needed to put anything out. And as you guys could just tell there, this area, this ground is completely, so there's the spider. Anyways, this ground is completely soaking wet.
I got it.
So now we've established the basis for a safe fire, and remember, with bushcrafting and even in a survival situation, you always want to be responsible. You do not want to start a forest fire, even if you're in a dire need. I mean, try and start a fire if you absolutely have to, but you try and be as responsible as you can, regardless to even if you're in a survival situation, because this is still Mother Nature, and you don't want to destroy it with your
irresponsibility.
Exactly.
You're welcome.
So now we are going to go over the basics of actually starting the fire. So in the very beginning, we went over collecting the very, very fine tinder. And this is it. This is, of course, very crumpled up but birch bark that is very fine, very, very easy to ignite. And this is going to be the basis of our fire. So we're going to start a fire with this using the ferro rod and a spark. Okay, so now you're going to do that.
Oops.
Yeah, you got to hold that knife hard. Like that thing has to be immovable. Yeah, like that. You're not producing a whole lot of spark. So that's the issue with that knife that I kind of saw. I was thinking about it, I'm like, I don't know if you can quite do that with this one. Don't worry.
I'll get it.
No, if you can't do it with that one, there's an easier one. You can use the M38.
Yeah, let's try the other one.
Because this is way better. So once again, basics. I'm not going to do it because I'll probably light it from here. But you're just going to hold this as hard as you can. You're going to hold this and you're going to bring it back. Okay. But you're going to do it with putting a lot of force against this. You're going to try and scratch these two as hard as you can. Okay. But you're probably going to put like a knee here and then just go like that. Okay. And remember, this knife cannot move at all. Like it needs to be, you need to have like a death grip on it. And you're going to want to, yeah, and so you're going to put your knee right here. You're going to be where I'm at. I'll just make this stuff nice for you.
You don't have to make it nice for me, it's okay. Man, this ground is really wet.
It is. You want to go where it's constructed. Okay. Remember, the objective is to light that stuff on fire, so that's what you want to try and do.
That's what I'm trying to do.
That's okay. Not bad. There we go. Ooh, I've never scratched it up like that. You got a special way of striking this ferro rod.
Is that good or bad?
Probably not good. Notice how also you want to brace it like this?
Yeah. There you go.
Yep. And then what you want to do, because like I said, it's going to be a pretty flash flame.
I'll move Wilson.
Yeah, that's probably the better. So, you weren't quite able to do it, but you know, it just
That's
takes
okay, it takes
skill.
practice.
It takes practice, yeah. Don't worry about that.
I know.
Some dead grass got in there. So guys, there you see a nice little fire going. It's a 70+ degree day out, so we really don't need a fire, but still, it's very important to learn how to do this. So guys, hopefully you've enjoyed that nice little fire show and tell, and hopefully that you've been able to learn something, and hopefully you've been able to learn something about how to start a fire. This is a very basic skill, but fire and shelter, which is coming up next, are the two most important things in a survival scenario, because without those two, you can only last about 3 hours in severe conditions. So that's going to be what's next. But anyways, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this nice episode on how to start a fire, what types of materials to look for, the basic techniques of feather sticking, and the basic techniques of using a ferro rod. I think using a ferro rod is very important because lighters can fail, matches can fail. This thing, I mean, this can fail too, but it's a lot harder to make this fail than either of the two mentioned. So guys, that's all for now, and we're out.
We're out.